Activision. From vision to action. Okay, so, I always try to, last week was cast a vision, and then I wanted to talk about how do we harvest our vision, how do we make it happen, and then I was creating this, and that was taking me to the idea that it needs to go into action, put your vision into action, and I thought, well, I want something more than that. Oh, I know, I'll just smash words together, Activision. And then I realized, maybe I should Google that and see if that's something. And there is Activision, which is like the company that makes all the games. But actually, it was kind of cool because what it showed me is that it's the idea. It's the idea of taking your vision and put it into action. Because see, years ago, the guys that made the games for Atari worked for Atari. So the games they made belonged to Atari, and Atari didn't give them credit for the games they made. They were like just doing all this incredible stuff, creating all this wonderful content, and the company was taking all the credit for it. And so the four big gamers for the company said, this is not working. We want to get credit for the games they were making. And the company went, no, that's not how we roll this. That's not how it works. They were trying to do them like the movie houses used to do and the record companies used to do with their artists. So they said, okay, fine, we're out of here. We're going to start our own company. And they'd started their own company that was then called Activision. And what they would do is when you would buy a game now, you would get the profile of the artist who created that game. And they started making gamers kind of like celebrities in the gaming world. So the vision took action, Activision, worked for my talk. And it was important that I did that. I did the same thing when my brother and I came up with this idea. He went to some workshop or something, and he came away from it with success comes in cans. So we thought, hey, let's make these success cans, and we'll put a recipe for success on the can, on the label of the can, and inside the can will be nothing, because inside the can, it's up to you to create your success, right? And so we went through this whole thing, and we made these cans, and we designed them, and we were ready to go, right? We were ready to go. And then I decided, but maybe I should, although I don't think it was Google then, because it was a long time ago, so I thought, I guess that was, what was before Google?
Library of Congress.
Library of Congress. No, not, you are so old. No, it's not the card catalog. It's the search engine before Google. Who? Maybe it was Yahoo. Huh? Ask Jeeves. Yeah, right. It was something like that. Yeah, it was like something like Ask Jeeves, right? You're almost as old as Andy. And anyway, Success Comes in Cans was already a business. This guy was already selling Success Comes in Cans. If you've got a vision, get busy around your vision, because somebody else is probably catching that same vision. Reverend Eloise Oliver up in Oakland says the reason they have the patent office is not because they want to figure out who came up with the idea first. It's the one who got to the idea and did the idea first, who made the idea come into reality. That's really what's going on. So anyway, that's how Activision came out to be the talk title for today, and I don't even know if it has anything to do with the talk now. Which takes me back to Reverend Mark Vieira, he was one of my teachers in homiletics, and he said, never let a title get in the way of a good talk. So I may not even talk about Activision anymore. But I am going to talk about your vision, because we talked about casting a vision last week. We talked about how do you cast your vision? How do you capture that vision? Like we talked about today, with going into the silence, going into that silent place of the divine. And once you catch it, and where that vision exists is kind of at the mountaintop. In the scriptures, they talk about mountains all the time and high consciousness, and the mountain is to represent high consciousness. It's that place where we contact the divine, which made Dr. King's speech, I've been to the mountaintop, take on all new kinds of relevance. That mountaintop consciousness is where we can go to create a wider view and a bigger vista, you see. And if we can get that out of the monovision and into the IMAX vision, you have to rise up. And that's why they talk about going up to the mountain. So you have to rise up where you get a bigger view. If you've ever been on a mountaintop, oh my God, when you get to the peak, isn't it just beautiful? And the vista that looks out before you. On the way up, you're just seeing boulders and the trail. But once you get to the top, it's this beautiful view. And I've been thinking a lot about the mountaintop because this week or this month, Joanne McFadden has been writing the Daily Guides. Daily Guide readers? Do you know who Joanne McFadden is? Besides being a person who climbs the Adirondacks and talks a lot about it in her daily guides, she's Chaplain Curtis's daughter. Yeah, right. So that brings it back to home, right? So she's ours. We can claim her, even though she's in New York. And so she talks about this idea of getting a greater vision. And as you get a greater vision, as you get a higher consciousness vision, you will also get a better result from whatever's going on in your life. Because the wider your scope of view, the wider your view, the better your catch, which is why they went from fishing with just a line to fishing with a net, so they could get a bigger catch. So if you want to get a bigger catch to your vision, get a wider view, climb up to the mountaintop, or do like my friend Erica did at Big Bowl. Do you remember the story of my friend Erica who goes to the Big Bowl Mongolian beef place, Mongolian barbecue, where you fill the bowl with food and they put it on the barbecue and they cook it up and then it shrinks down because the bowl, is after it's cooked, it's really small, and that really bothered her. So when she would go to Big Bowl, which is what they called Mongolian barbecue up in St. Paul. It was a place called Big Bowl. And you'd go there, and she would take the romaine lettuce leaves and put them around the edge of her bowl. She would make her big bowl bigger, so that when they finished cooking it down, it was always heaping. They hated to see her come. That's what we're talking about, catching a bigger vision. You see, the law is not going to change. The law that brings us the activities in our life, it's not going to change. So what we need to do is get a bigger bucket, catch a higher vision, climb to a mountaintop, see the widest view possible, like you're looking at an IMAX screen. And when you can take your vision to that higher level, you bring in more inputs, and therefore you get to demonstrate a larger truth for yourself. Dr. Holmes says, the range of our possibilities does not extend far beyond the range of our present concepts, right? The range of our possibilities does not extend far beyond the range of our present concepts. So if you want to have a larger possibility, increase your range of your concepts. Go to a wider view, is what we're talking about here. Now, I don't want to poo-poo anybody's vision. It's yours. I'm not here to judge it or to qualify it or anything like that. But I do see some commonalities behind what Dr. Holmes talked about in his statement, What We Believe. Do you know how What We Believe came about? He was going to an interview somewhere, and they said, what do you believe? And he says, what do I believe? So he just jotted down what I believe. And one of the things he believed is he believed that man, in his writing, that humankind would be emancipated from all discord. It's a very interesting idea. Here's a guy who believed in limitless possibilities, in love beyond all things, in a peace that passes all understanding. Yet when he wrote about what he believed, he wrote about emancipation from all discord. You might think, wow, that's kind of a negative perspective. But what he was thinking there, I don't know, we haven't had a chat, although I'd love to have coffee with Dr. Holmes, or tea, because I don't drink coffee, but maybe he does. Huh? Tangent, yeah. Where was I? No, but the idea about emancipation from discord is once we can free ourselves from the limitations, once we can free ourselves from the suffering, once we can free ourselves from the idea that what we're experiencing that may be painful has to be experienced so deeply that it becomes suffering. Once we move away from that kind of discord, what is left over is the peace, the love, and the happiness. He was onto something. He was understanding that the human condition is going to bring us stuff, that stuff happens, right? He knew that. And he understood that. And what he was saying is that there is a way for us to move beyond that. And so as you look to catch your vision and see what is yours to do, what I want to suggest is what grabs your attention is yours to do. Like my graffiti friend, the one that hated graffiti, he was just always ticked off whenever he would see graffiti. Why do they have to do that? What's wrong with these people? Don't they have any respect for property? Well, he also had no respect for paying his parking tickets. And so when he got arrested for having so many parking tickets and was sentenced to community service, you know what his community service ended up being, right? Cleaning up graffiti. That was his community service. And from that, he got to understand the various levels of graffiti. Taggers versus graffiti artists versus kids that just don't have anything to do. And he came to understand that there's this area, this graffiti art that's going on in the world. And he became an advocate for graffiti art spaces. A guy who, what grabbed his attention was graffiti. And then what became his to do was to create space through a nonprofit for kids, young adults, to go. He's partly responsible for those walls down at Venice Beach where the kids can go and do the graffiti walls. That's part of what he got to do. All because he didn't pay his parking tickets. All because what got his attention was graffiti. What gets your attention is yours to do. If you see it, thou must be it. There's part of you that's connected to that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see it. And this is the way spirit works. Dr. Holmes again. The divine mind, being the sole and only creative agency in the universe, finds in each individual a new and fresh starting point for its action. See, spirit has so much to do that has created each and every one of us with our own unique thing that we must do. And it's new to God, which is kind of interesting, you know, that this I did a wedding yesterday, and I also did a funeral yesterday. We did Carol's service yesterday. How many were there? Was it beautiful or not? Yeah. So we're all going to take love. Mine is to take love, because she was just so much about love, and try to be all that much more loving every single moment of the day. And it was interesting too, at the service for Carol, they sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and at the wedding for Bruno and Kelly, they did Somewhere Over the Rainbow. What a functional song. It has a lot of purpose. I brought that up to say that there was this kid at the wedding yesterday who was all freaked out because I had God in the wedding. He says, "There's no such thing as God." And I said, "Well, that's what you believe, then that's the truth." He says, "How can you say that? You're a minister." I said, "Because the kind of minister I am is done unto you as you believe. And if you believe there's no God, for you there's no God. And for those that believe in a God, there is a God." And this thing about God that's so interesting that we got into this conversation about is that God actually doesn't exist. I mean, I can't touch God or see God, but I know there is a God. Isn't that interesting? So the only way that I can see the expression of God, that I can know that God exists, is through each and every one of us and through each and every one of its creations. And so it's kind of like beauty. I don't really know it, but I certainly saw it when Johanna and I went to Van Gogh. Did I get it right? Van Gogh? But how do they say it? How do you say it? Van Gogh. Van Gogh. Yeah. That was real. Take your 5-year-old over there. But we saw beauty hanging on the walls of that museum. You know, I saw beauty just in the engineering and the detail. In Holland, of course, they bicycle everywhere, and they got these railings on the steps, so when you go up the steps, your bike goes in this trough and it just rolls. I mean, I'm taking pictures of that, you know. Here's all these canals and all this beauty and everywhere, and I'm taking pictures of the railings for your bicycle to go up, because I just thought that was so amazing. But you see, there's a person who decided this putting my bike on my shoulder or bumping it, bump up and down the steps, that doesn't work. He decided that he would be a fresh starting point for the action of God to show up as this railing, you know. Just as Van Gogh decided to be the action to show up as these new incredible brush strokes, as you are the action to show up as whatever. I don't know. Whatever grabs your attention is yours to do. Did that all make sense? Did you follow me there? I'm so glad, because for a minute I thought I was out there all by myself. Although I like being by myself sometimes. Sometimes. No, that's true. You're never alone, because God's always there. Yeah. So pay attention to what's catching your view, your attention. Get to that high mountaintop consciousness. Widen your view and accept what comes through. And as we talk about from vision to action, I'm talking about the call that you need to answer. How do you answer that call? And here's where I had my big shift of the week. That to get to the action of your vision, it happened when I was trying to look at the last episode of Jessica Jones. I so disappointed that they only had one season. So fortunately, I saved one last episode, and I turned on my laptop to watch it, and it said, "Your Silverlight is not up to date. Allow a plug-in." And I went, "Huh? Allow a plug-in." Then I decided I would save that episode and do some work instead, and that required that I opened up Adobe, and man, there it is again. Your Adobe's out of date. Your Flash is out of date. Allow a plug-in. And I was like, there it is again. Oh my God. How do I watch my Jessica Jones? How do I look at this video right now on YouTube? I must allow a plug-in. Whoa, who's the divine plug? God. What must I do? Allow. How can I go into action? By allowing. It don't even have to work that hard. I just have to open up and allow it to happen. To wait for Spirit to show up. And that's what took me back to the wide view. If I have this really wide view, then I'm going to see all kinds of things that don't seem like they're related. But if I'm in a state of allowance, if I'm in a state of what they call surrender, I will be able to see what these different elements have to do with one another, and then be projected toward, be pulled toward, be led into the proper and right action I need to take. It's really not that I have to do all that much. I love Mark Nepo. Book of Awakening is one of the books I wake up to every morning, and last week or a couple weeks ago, he had this one. All the buried seeds crack open in the dark the instant they surrender to a process they can't see. Whoa. Whoa. I mean, really. And I love gardening, as you know. Put the seed in the ground. It's dark down there. And then all of a sudden, boop, it pops open. And off and running it goes, and it doesn't even know, It doesn't even know. And then it has to surrender to this process that leads it from the safety and the comfort and the warmth of this underground nurturing place into the bright sun. Ah! And it keeps on going. It keeps on going until suddenly, that tomato that we ate the other day was so good. The kale that I put in the stump-ups was so good. Who knows? And it happened one day at a time, one moment at a time. And that's the other thing about vision and catching your vision. And I'm one of those, I want to get it all done, I start a project, I want to finish it, I want to know when the finish line is coming, I want to program my day so that I can get to the finish line, and then I realize sometimes the projects are just too big to do that way. Sometimes it's just one day at a time. Sometimes it's 1 minute at a time, 1 moment at a time. I got a friend who's in a group where they give you chips, and he got a chip that was a 10-minute chip. He was like living life just 10 minutes at a time. Forget the 1 day at a time. All he could do is just 10 minutes at a time. Sometimes that's all we can do, So when you're out chasing after your vision and you catch it and you got the wide view and all the things are coming together and you realize your unique thing to do, give yourself the time to get it done. Don't worry about stretching through it. Because as Casey and Vance in this, A Promise of a New Day, they say, all of us can manage to fulfill one promise for 1 day if we believe in it and in ourselves. In ourselves. If you truly believe in what you're doing, if you truly believe in yourself, if you truly believe in Spirit guiding you, then all you do in 1 day is just enough. It's going to be fine because there's something undercurrent. There's faith working with you that's going to bring you to the end no matter what. Like the seed, it's going to stay in the process until it completely opens 1 day at a time. You see, when we understand what Dr. Holmes talks about, that love operates through law, and we've caught that vision and we've plugged in and we've allowed, then it's coming down to faith. We must understand that we don't have to make something happen because something already is happening all the time. You see, this activity of life is always going on all the time. So we don't have to force it. And sometimes there's so much of the pressure of forcing causes so much friction that we spin out of control. If we can just kick back, shaka bro, take it easy and relax into it, we can get into a much better groove down the line. The idea of it happening all the time hit me so hard when Johanna and I came home. We left our garden, our little tomatoes were like this, and little pepper plants like that, and the cucumbers had these little itty bitty flowers on them, and bitty bitty cucumbers, And then we came home 3 weeks later, tomato plants are standing up like this. The cucumbers had grown. I got this tall hedge in the front, and so I grow the cucumbers into the hedge so they can grow up the hedge as a stalk instead of having to put stalks out, which worked really great until the gardener came on Thursday and cut them down. We are going to have a talk, I'm telling you. Talk about surrender and allowing. Gosh, I'm going to have to listen to this talk before I talk to him. But there is a joy in the release of the pressure of having to do it. There's a joy in that. Talk about emancipation from all discord. One of the biggest discords, I don't know about you, but one of the biggest discords I put on me is the pressure to get it done and to get it done at a certain time. Back to Carol yesterday. People talked about her being late to stuff, but apparently she was on time to everything. I mean, it didn't start before she got there because she was a star. So, just do it. Just do it okay at the time that you do it. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. We stress out. I know I stress out about trying to get there, all right? And so Dr. Holmes comes with some help on this. The person who can throw himself with a complete abandon into that limitless sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all moorings, is the one who will always receive the greatest reward. Even principle is showing up. Demonstration of these talks shows up for me all week long. It showed up last night when I was making this slide, because you notice I like to put the source of the slide, right? I'm hooked to that. That's my mooring. I am moored to the idea of style, and so that the style, the convention for my slides is slide, name, source. This quote was too long. When I shrunk it down, the text seemed too small. I read it and I went, okay, loose yourself from the mooring, jump into the sea of receptivity, and understand it doesn't have to have the name on there. It's Dr. Ernest Holmes, by the way, it's from the Science of Mind textbook. But that's just a mini example of it. But think about for your own self. What are you hooked to? What are you tied to? And how is what you were tied to limiting you from harvesting your vision from this limitless sea of receptivity? Are you willing to cut loose from what is holding you back and know that you don't have to make it happen because something is happening, and that is happening because you are allowing it, and in the allowance of it, you're stepping toward your greatest reward, your emancipation from all discord, the joy of release. So the result of following this process that I just explained to you is a freedom from strife, a freedom from worry, a grace in your life that allows you to just move through it without, there's going to be judgments. Of course there are. I mean, that's what the brain does. It's busy. Yes, no, good, bad, right, wrong. Got it. But do you have to be tied to it? Do you have to be fused with it? Or can you move away from the thought enough to know that I'm allowing something to happen and I'm going to stand in it until it happens? I'm going to be like that seed and trust in the process that's unfolding and allow some peace to come into our lives. Dr. Holmes says, as we bring ourselves to a greater vision, we induce a greater concept and thereby demonstrate more in our lives. As we, in our experience, as we allow ourselves to climb up to that high point of consciousness and become receptive to the vision that has caught our attention, and then we allow ourselves to pull away from that which is our past, which is the stories that we bring from our families of origin and from all the domestication, as Don Miguel Ruiz talks about, the domestication of our lives, where we have assigned ourselves, these are the rules, and this is how I'm going to play. I must have an attribution at the end of every quote. All that kind of stuff. Those things, let them go. Trust in the process. Trust in yourself. And one day at a time, maybe 10 minutes at a time, you will come down from that mountain view and you will take your vision and you will realize that it has come to demonstration through the action of your life. It's just that simple. And so it is. Okay. So that takes us back to our affirmation.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Hey, man, thanks, Dominic, for showing up today. It's not Dominic's Sunday. He jumped in at the last minute for us. Give him some love. Yeah, baby. Yeah, man. So here we go. Are you ready? Yep. Empowered by spirit and fueled by vision, I joyously answer the call of what's mine to do, and I do it now. And I do it by allowing. I'm so filled with the circle of life this week to do a life celebration and then to do a celebration of a new form of life. 2 new forms of life taking place at the same time. And to be bounded by that song. It's like, wow, that was beautiful. Beautiful. There's always good unfolding. Despite whatever our conditions, whatever our limited mind wants to tell us. Because the arc that we see is so much smaller than the arc that exists. And we sometimes want to stop at the point where we are and not understand that there is more constantly unfolding. So let's go to that place of limitless unfoldment right now. And that place begins with an understanding that there is one life. That life is God. That life is my life and your life and the life of everyone in our minds at this present moment. So feeling unified with the divine and all of its creations in this space, I speak this word of truth that I know. That we have within our power, within the visions of our minds, within the dreams and the imaginations, abilities that we have to move to that space of Dr. Holmes's belief in an emancipation from all discord. We do that by accepting the truth of who we really are, whole, perfect, and complete. We see that in the smile of the young ones that are going to come up here a little bit later. We see that in the promise of a new day as the sun seeps up above the horizon. We see that when we look into the eyes of our beloved, when our hands touch. We see it at the grocery store when we see the abundance of God's lavish givingness displayed before us. We see it even on the news when what looks like a disaster causes people to come together in a whole new way to serve and to be a loving presence in the world. So we move beyond a limited view and step up into a higher view where we can see the whole picture and understand that life is good and very good. Take this principle into whatever condition in your life may be causing you strife, may be holding you back, mooring you to a limitless idea, and we just let go. We cut the line and we float off into this sea of receptivity and we say, yes, we got a big bowl, a big bucket. Fill it, God. I'm ready. So it is from this place of understanding, from this place of process and knowing how to use the process that I say, thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you, Divine Spirit. Thank you, Infinite Presence, for your love, your grace, and your self-givingness. I accept. I receive it now. And if you receive it now with me, affirm this word as we release it into the law by saying, and so it is. All right.